Hello and welcome to the stream. Let's add a little bit light to the game. It seems it's a little bit dark. This should help to do it and a bit more. Yay. Goddamn cables everywhere. Oh. All right, and what else? Maybe this is a little bit too bright. Let's just adjust it a little bit. No, it's probably this one. Alrighty. Oh, indeed. Welcome to the monthly chat stream. What have you? Um, there is no really a topic apart from probably talking about some random stuff because it's been a while since we did monthly stream, and I think the last time we did it was already quite a few weeks ago, and about my band Nightside, kind of a live stuff. So this time it's probably just random questions, comments, all that stuff, and maybe a little bit my about my trip to Norway beyond the Gates Festival 2023, from which I returned this Monday. Now the whole video recap of the festival will be out actually next week. Yeah, next Saturday, just a week from now. So in case you are not on the stream, which makes kind of a feel weird for me to even say it, you will get the whole recap from there. Now, mind you, I wasn't that prepared, so I'm still grabbing my glasses and whiskey bottle. This time we're drinking what's called Douglas Lane's Provenance Islay whiskey, single malt Scotch whiskey distilled by Carl Illa Distiller, one of my favorite ones from Scotland. As probably all of you know, as especially if you have been following the channel for quite some time, you know that I'm a whiskey guy and a beer guy. So because whiskey doesn't really get that, or I mean, there's no point putting whiskey bottle in a fridge. This is very more streamable drink than say beer. So keep this to you, my friends, followers, fans, whatever you are, and welcome to the stream. Oh, yep, let's start commenting right away. Thank you, Benji. Indeed, it was birthday 3 days ago. So yeah, I guess that could be one of the theme of the stream. Oh, seriously, not nobody gives a damn about birthdays 1 year old and all that stuff. But yeah, lots of stuff laying all over the table. Sorry for me being a little bit unprepared here and all that stuff. But let's get it going. I'll get commenting. Hello, Artur. How are you doing? It was nice to meet you there. Uh, all right, we have some troll here. Let's entertain the troll. He's saying rat, rat, rat. Rats are pretty cool animals. He's also saying hui ora, which doesn't really mean anything. Now he's telling me to learn English monkey. Ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ooh. So it's nice to have a troll here. Uh, monkey, rat. Very highly intelligent comments by this Spede15. Now, obviously, someone removed all the comments. Thank you, SK. Um, so, what's up, people? How are you doing? How is summer been treating you? Have you been to festivals? Have you seen good gigs? Have you seen something worthwhile mentioning? Um, yeah, Artur, this is actually pretty good about whiskey, as you can pretty much see. I've been drinking this for quite a bit. I got this from Gibraltar when I was in Spain. That is a few months ago. And I've been enjoying this whenever I've been playing. Not every time, mind you, but as you can see, uh, quite a few sips been taken during the past couple of months. So here we are. Um, yes, Tomox Erno is very, very well spotted. This is Abzagara from United States. Got this fine T-shirt when the band sent me something for review, and well, this fits nicely, right? So here we are. Hello, Waldman. Nice to be on the stream. And thank you, Waldman. Yeah, the birthday was indeed there a couple of days ago. No feeling old and whatnot. No, seriously. I had a really great week at the gym. Uh, been doing some fancy workouts like today, heavy deadlifts, and on Wednesday, heavy squatting. It seems like even though I'm getting older, I'm still getting better with the strength levels and all that stuff. So can't really complain. Yeah, SK, indeed. I don't know. Maybe people are drunk and just, you know what trolls do. They just keep trolling because they feel like, you know, they could get attention. That's what trolls do. Maybe he was just drunk. I don't know, but people are like that. Kind of a silly. I mean, I wouldn't imagine myself spending my valuable time, which I'm sharing with you guys. I wouldn't ever go to a fucking stream and just start trolling because there are plenty of better stuff that I could do with my time. Be it training, be it playing a guitar, watching a movie, playing a game, going out for a walk. I don't know, talking to online girls, friends, whatever. But maybe some people just don't have it. They feel like, yeah, trolling is the best way to spend time. Well, sorry for them. They should know better. Anyway, thank you, SK, also for your birthday things and all that stuff. Hello, how to say, V4? Greece. Well, nice to have some Greek people here. Always super nice. Oh, yeah, Arthur. Yeah, your kiss. What a gift indeed. You're not the only one who kissed my forehead during the festivals. There was um, Sandrab from Gehenna who actually did the very same at Steelfest. Somehow my forehead seems to be so loved. Anyway, yeah, thank you, Domogos. Talking about interviews, there are quite a few in the pipeline. Mustan Kun Lapset interview is already out there for Patreon supporters. They can already see the interview and hopefully enjoy them. Then the next one will be Achilles. And then it's time for Beyond the Gates interviews, which will, if things go as planned, starting 1st of September. Let me see if that's actually Friday. Yeah, Friday, 1st of September is supposed to be the first day when these Beyond the Gates interviews start rolling out. That is supposed to be possessed. Now, mind you, Patreon supporters get at least a week ahead of time to see those interviews because that's my way to say thank you. I know weeks head start isn't much, but that's something that I can do for the time being. And if any of your supporters are there and want to make suggestions how to make this Patreon system worth your money even better. I mean, if you want something more for your money, let me know if I can fix it for you. And if you're wondering what the money is used for when people, put their money in order to support Rauta, well, as you can see, Beyond the Gates Festival was indeed funded by people supporting Rauta. And now it's, of course, possible to donate a little bit money via PayPal as well as, YouTube. That is possible as well as Patreon. Now, I won't be begging for your money, of course, that would be just ridiculous. But in case you feel like you want to support the channel, that is me and my camera people doing those interviews, well, every dollar, every euro, whatever helps because this time, this trip, for instance, was funded by Patreon supporters, and with that money, hodl and all that got funded, which means 8 interviews coming your way. I hope you will be enjoying them. This uh, voluntary support, funding, whatever. That means that I don't have to put anything behind paywall. I want to have those interviews right there for you. So consider this the system how it works. So people who are helping the channel help you as well. So thanks to all the Patreon supporters and other donators who have been donating money for Rauta. stuff that isn't used for my personal booze. It just helps to do these trips. So, to all the supporters, big thank you. All right, I'm reading a little bit of comments and answering your questions as they appear. Um, what else? What else? Sexy forehead kisses. Yeah, well, my interviews of late, I already listed them somewhere, at least on the Patreon site, but they were like possessed, mm, a primordial part two, negative plane, Tolke part two, terrestrial hospice, in Twilight's embrace, Eternus, and what was the number eight? Let me think about it. Oh yeah, blood incantation. One that I wasn't even expecting to happen because nobody replied me. Those mails I sent, and suddenly through my friends' help, there were quite a few helping me really to get those interviews done. I'm talking about label people such as Ula of Terratur Possession. I'm talking about Okoi from band Belzer, and people like that. They were really helping out, pulling their strings in order to make those interviews happen. So I guess I have friends in good places, friends with good heart and good mindset. So, for example, that's the reason why Blood Incantation interview happened, even though it was certainly looking like it's not going to happen. So, all in all, I'm pretty happy that we got 8 interviews done, and they're not some short ones, which you have might have seen already the teasers on YouTube or Rauta's Facebook or my personal Instagram ones because I uploaded those short teaser videos as well as Martti videos there. I wanted to give you a little bit of an idea, a little bit of a teaser what's happening in Norway. So I hope you like this current format that during festival days there won't be a daily video, but more like short videos giving a little bit of an idea what's going on and what to expect and all that stuff. And if you like this style, for the lack of better word, there will be more of that stuff coming with later festivals as well. Of course, I did a little bit of test run with this given style, making short videos out of Steelfest 2023 and Inferno 2023. So it seems like people like those short videos, even though they give only a tiny glimpse into the world of that given festival. But I like to think that it's better than nothing. So instead of you having to wait for weeks for certain interviews to pop up, at least you get a little bit of glimpse inside. And Martti videos are there to entertain those who like weird Finnish humor. I get it, it's not everybody's cup of tea, it's totally given. But those who get to enjoy Martti and get to the mindset of that weird humor I do with my camera people, well, I hope you enjoyed them. Now, this is pretty much the basic I can tell you so far, but indeed, I'm really happy that there are next 9 or 10 weeks, there will be interviews coming up. And by the time they're done, by the time we're through August, September, and October, I should have more interviews already done. But I really can't say for sure until they have happened. What I've learned, that is my lessons, is that whenever I say something like, you probably remember when I announced Goat Moon interview being agreed and that never happened, is that I rather not announce interviews being done until they are done. And even still, a couple of times when I have done an interview, everything is filmed, conducted, whatever, and sometimes the artist is like, no, we're not going to do it, don't publish it. That happened, for example, with Satanic Warmaster the second time. That happened with some other band later on. So sometimes interview doesn't get out even though the artist seems fine before doing the actual piece. So there we are. But what can I tell you about a little bit of background information about our interviews, because I didn't mention that with my Beyond the Gates recap, is that, for example, Talke interview part two indeed took place in 3 different places. You will notice some familiar places like Fantoft Church, the place Vikernes burned down. You will see some of the famous ruins, monastery ruins from Norway, which are related to Immortal and Tolkien videos, and you will see one of the mountains which is surrounding Bergen. So it's definitely different than staying in one place, say a backstage area, or whatever. So I think this part two of talk interview kind of how to say expands the first one. Primordial interview definitely expands the first one, and we did this very spontaneously 2 a.m. in a bar. Might sound like some drunk talk, but I think it was actually worthy conversation with Mr. Vocalist of Primordial, Alan, who also does his own podcast, which you might already know. What else I could tell you about interviews? Yeah, two of them happened at Grieghallen. Grieghallen, which you probably know by name, is a concert hall in Bergen, in the very city center, where a lot of black metal bands and other metal bands used for recording their albums back in the days and still do. So it's a very, very, how to say, almost a holy place for extreme metal in Norway, not only as a concert hall, but as a recording studio, like, the Mysteries Wisdom Satanas, for instance. And it served as a concert hall for a lot of gigs, which sound fantastic. So, a little bit background information regarding that. Then we did one interview with band Terrestrial Hospice, which didn't even play Beyond the Gates, but I wanted to do because I had already agreed it with my friend playing in the band, the main creator, songwriter, etc. And that is also something different because it's not in some backstage or some smoky bar or whatever, but actually at his home. And he took me for a hike at Bergen surrounding outskirts of the city. So quite different interviews all in all. Some of them are done in a backstage area. For example, Chef of Possessed, that was done right after the gig and at the backstage area, and like those Krieghallen parts, they were done in the big hall, which is used for hanging coats and all that stuff. So there are definitely quite different interviews, all in all, in style, in place, and all that stuff. So I guess they should be interesting in so many ways, but then again, I'm biased to tell you which one are actually the good ones and which are not. Blood Incantation, for example, became very, very lengthy one, but it's so intellectual, kind of a scientific and philosophical talk in so many ways that it's definitely something different than you would expect from a typical death metal one. So I hope you will be entertained. Give yourself a chance with these interviews. My advice is don't just limit to the bands you already like in terms of music and whatnot. Go beyond your comfort zone. That's what I am saying, because some of those bands you might know and figure out, okay, these bands are not interesting in terms of interview, but they actually have something worthwhile to tell you, to answer the questions and all that stuff, and expand your knowledge about metal. That's what I try to do with those interviews. So it's not just about finding your favorite bands. In my opinion, it's about expanding the knowledge, having a window into certain bands, background, history, and other parts, what might be relevant to more than just the band's music. Well, that's at least what I hope to do with these interviews. I'm a little bit rambling here, but I hope this explains the whole thing. Right now, I will just read some of the comments and get to answer your stuff, your comments and questions and all that stuff. Um, Benji, I'm happy that you got to check out Lucifer's Child. They are indeed a good band, and well, at least one guy I got to interview, great dude. But Greek people always seem to be great. So what can I say? Nicest people on earth so far as I've gotten to talk. Mm. Oh, Arturo had to go. Damn, didn't even see this. Well, I'm hoping he's having good time. Oh, SK, I'm happy to hear you got the new Terrestrial Hospice. So far, it's one of the best albums of the year. So that's great. Yes, Steed Day, or is it Stead Day? Steed Day. Yeah, I was really busy at the at the Gates Festival, so quite a few interviews and quite a bit of other stuff as well. Uh, Emil, sorry, Herno Domokos is asking, and the talk interview, more about Korgorod side. No, we really didn't talk about Korgorod because while Hust is indeed vocalist for the band, I mean, we still didn't talk about Gorgoroth. More about Hust's personal take on Norway and Norwegian things, and well, other things. I better not spoil too much of that stuff, but we didn't talk Gorgoroth indeed. Oh, Lucas, nice to hear that Possessed played a killer show there. Yeah, I can tell you that much. Jeff is probably the most positive person in metal scene. I mean, look at him. He's sitting in a wheelchair, has only one eye, and he just keeps saying, "Yeah, love death metal and trying to make people happy," and has this great attitude. I mean, some people could just give up because they have lost their legs or whatever. I mean, ability to walk and all that stuff. But Jeff, no, he just keeps rolling, literally rolling. Anyway, hello Vladimir, welcome to the stream. Um, what else? Yeah, I already explained those interviews, so some of your comments were about that. Maybe no need to recap that. Southern, yeah, Steelfest 2024, bring it on. Um, yeah, SK, I don't know if there is a point to do Marty interview. What it would be? Maybe someday. But then we would have someone to ask those questions. Maybe camera person. I don't know. Hello, Brian Mons. Welcome to the stream. Kuisma didn't have the possibility to go to Dark River Festival, so no opinion. I mean, my own thoughts are not maybe my kind of festival too much. What else? Oh yeah, Benji. Indeed, there's a Rotting Christ connection with Lucifer's Child, but of course, there are overlapping things in terms of similarity with the music and all. But of course, they're two different bands, so there are similarities. Maybe because of the Greek scene, maybe because of playing in both bands, but also quite different in other respects. All right. Got your comments read. So yeah, everything seems to be nice here. Now it's finally stopped raining. Weather talk time. I mean, it has been a crazy week in terms of weather. Bergen seems to be the most rainy city in Europe. And guess what? Rauta made a call like, "Hello, this is Jerry from Rauta. I need you to postpone all the rain while I'm in the city because we don't want to get soaked. We want to get those interviews without getting the rain." And guess what? The gods of weather, maybe it was Thor, uh, said that, okay, we'll postpone the rain and no rain in Bergen. Now, when I got to Oslo, I got soaked right away. And it was indeed quite stormy. I mean, after I got to Finland, I heard that the airport train, the shuttle one, that stopped working because of the storm. It seems like the train got damaged, the tracks got damaged, something like that. And it has been raining here for most of the week. Even some trees went down. Like, actually, I had to, one of the apple trees on our yard went down, and I had to borrow a chainsaw from my dad in order to chop down the tree in order to just get rid of it and make it into firewood. So people from Helsinki and other parts, more eastern parts of Finland, were joking, So this is what the storm did. Nothing. A little bit rain and maybe some plastic chair got topped over. And I was like, man, we got like trees. Like for example, one day I was driving to the city and there was like a tree across the road because the storm has had just made trees go down. I mean, the storm was fierce here. Like a neighbor, I think like he got like two, trees down, and it was a little bit flooding here as well. So yeah, weird that we didn't get any of the rain in Bergen. And when I come home, now got back mowing the lawn and making everything look nice because it's not raining anymore. But what can I say? Been an interesting week. Oh yeah, Brian. I already noticed the very same topic that you were saying about Mercedes Mort's lineup, that it's very Steelfest like. But I think it just tells a lot about what people want to see. I mean, there are lots of bands that are the kind of a filler ones, and then there are really interesting ones. And Steelfest, for example, is definitely getting some interesting bands, and of course, other festivals are like, hey, okay, they get sold out or whatever. Maybe we should have some of the same bands. And the good thing is, because Mercedes Morts takes place in Canada and Steelfest takes place in Hyvinkää, Finland, they are nowhere near each other, so they are not really competing. As far as I can see or tell, I could say, yeah, they are actually bringing some of the bands to Canada, that people who don't have the money to come to, for example, Steelfest, can still enjoy the same bands. God damn, it's so hot here that I need to put the fan on. Let me know if it's disturbing the microphone. Shouldn't, but in case it is, let me know. Yeah, Vince. Really, it was weird. I didn't see a single drop of rain in Bergen, and everybody was saying like, "Yeah, it's gonna rain the whole fucking weekend. Bring your raincoat and all that stuff." So I did, for to be used in Oslo. Um, what else? Yeah, talking about good albums this year. It has been very fascinating year so far, both in death metal and black metal, if you ask me. For example, death metal territory, we already have albums out, for instance, by Obituary and Vomitory. And Cannibal Corpse album will be out in, if I recall correctly, somewhere around, was it like early or mid September? And it's fierce. It's good album. In black metal territory, we already have out like Terrestrial Hospice. We have Sielun Vihollinen Norhem Split. We have a new Sielun Vihollinen album. There will be a new Toge album, new Marduk album, which is also good. And I'm also missing something straight out of my head. Asagraum album is coming. That one I haven't heard. But Toge, Marduk, Cannibal Corpse, I can already say that they are good ones. So yeah, this is already seeming very strong year for black metal and death metal. So it's very good. And thank you, Waldman. It's good to know that the fan is not causing a mess here in terms of sound. Maybe I could just put on the lower gear. Domokos, the Satanic Warmaster interview is censored or blurred because the artist wants it so. It's actually explained already years and years ago in the description of the interview. So if you just click the interview description, you will see that there's a explanation for that. Um, yeah, SK, they are also mentioned on the comments why it's blurred, but it's definitely in the description as well. Hello, Stevens. welcome to the stream. Hello, Meta Voice. Yeah, the new Marduk album. I've only listened to it once, so it's not like I have reviewed just yet. But so far, what I've been thinking about it is that, like, it's kind of a safe and sound Marduk. There are parts which could really have a little bit of funeral mist in the game, but overall, it's not like surprising. Oh yeah, and one of the better ones in black metal territory. Not everybody agrees. I still don't know why I haven't unwrapped this one, but Immortal one also one of the better ones from this year's black metal albums. Well, in my opinion, anyway. Goat Moon, I still haven't heard it. Uh, Obviously, the label doesn't promote it, and I just don't care too much about it. Um, Lucas is asking what's my opinion on Finnish death metal in general. Well, there are basically two eras of Finnish death metal. Two in the sense of early 90s when bands like Sentenced, Amorphis, Abhorrence, Sisma, and lots of those old school death metal and Pertinence, what have you, were doing their Finnish kind of death metal, which was kind of like darker counterpart than what Swedes were doing. But most of that stuff isn't really my cup of tea. I mean, there are plenty of bands, Demigod and Demilich, lots of old school bands which had something interesting going on. But most of that stuff, unfortunately, it's not that important to me. I know a lot of people really like it, and of course it's fine. But for me, the best Finnish death metal bands are bands like Torture Killer, now quite of old, but wasn't there in the 90s, and Morbid Vomit, which is also a little bit nearer band, though already been out, I don't know, 10 plus years. But they are the ones which are, in a way, a little bit more modern. But I like them more. There are also other up and coming bands, such as Galvanizer, for instance, which is more on the good side of things. And then there are some other bands which I don't recall right away like this, but probably, hey, okay, yeah, later on I will remember them. Um, Bands like Maveth, that was a really interesting one. Corpsest, of course. Um, Desolate Shrine, but that is more on the Death Black territory. Those are good ones. Line Ruins. Line Ruins is actually quite old. They're from the 90s, some 30 years more or less. So there are quite a few really good bands, but most of the old ones from the Finnish death metal scene are not that interesting to me. Overall, I would say Finnish death metal scene is quite solid, and there are definitely quite a bit of interesting bands, but most of them don't get that much of attention than, say, Swedish bands. I guess they kind of lack the groove of what a lot of Swedish death metal bands have, and then again, they are maybe not as heavy and well produced than, say, a lot of American death metal ones. But these are, of course, down to individual bands and all that stuff. So take it as you wish. I would say I would say that in general, Finnish death metal is definitely decent. Hello, Matti Man. How are you doing? Welcome to the stream. And Domokos, Cannibal Corpse album is definitely coming for review. So that should be reviewed as soon as the physical copy arrives here. And I got to interview the band, what, 4 years ago already. So there is a Cannibal Corpse interview on the Rauta channel before COVID and all. Oh, Cecilia, thank you. Always being very supporting. Your neighbors definitely will like more Rauta talk than listening to Annihilator, Infant Annihilator. Yeah, send my regards to your neighbors. Tune to Rauta stream and all that stuff. Um, What else? How seems hugs and kisses are sent? How come I receive nothing? Where are my hugs and kisses? Come on, send some over here. Oh, I have whiskey, so it helps. Yeah, Benji. In my opinion, I think Sisma basically nailed their own style with their kind of I wouldn't even call it the death and roll, but the kind of a rock and rollish phase they had back in the days. I actually got to see Sisma at least a couple of times, maybe a few times. They were really doing some good stuff with Lotto and all that stuff. But yeah, Lucas, yeah, Adromelech was something that came to my mind later on, and yeah, those other ones are indeed kind of underrated. But I think they're underrated only because people don't know about it. Um, so there's that. Um, Christoph, hello from Czech. No, I unfortunately I don't know anything new about Havukruunu or when they're releasing more stuff. So sorry. What else? Oh, Brian Mons, Metallica playing in your city. Nice. Well, Metallica still kicking ass, even though the guys are 60s. I mean, at least James Hetfield turned 60 recently. Metallica, I've seen them a few times, at least on three different decades, and in my opinion, they still kick butt. Some people might not like Metallica because of being big and mainstream and all that stuff, but I mean, I grew up with that shit, and they still play a lot of old songs. They know that their old songs kick ass, so there's that. And Jon Zered is asking what I'm drinking. This is Douglas Lane's Provenance whiskey, distilled in Kalila distillery. So it's Scotch whiskey. As you can see, it's quite pale. Looks like piss. Not as brown as some of the more, I guess, rye whiskeys are a little bit more on the brown side, or at least a little bit deeper in color. But this is quite pale, but definitely peaty and smoky taste. Hello, Not School Black. Welcome to the stream. How are things in Middle Earth? Um, Malevolent Creation is actually, in my opinion, a very, very decent band. Not the best from United States or anything like that, but they have been always like one of those kind of a hardworking, kind of a working class death metal, if you really think about it. Much like Master, in a way, never got too big, but never kind of gave up either. I mean, their style is something I could call kind of a timeless death metal. So yeah, they are something like if you're like, I need to play some old school death metal, but I won't go with the obvious ones, Cannibal Corpse or Death or Bolt Thrower or something like that. And you're like, yeah, let's put in some timeless death metal, which should be put people in the moshing state. And Malevolent Creation is one of those bands. People would be like, hey, what is this band? This sounds somewhat familiar, but I really can't put my finger on it. And then you just drop, hey, it's Malevolent Creation. Oh yeah, I remember the name. Now, for example, when I was driving with my cameraman Carl from Bergen to Oslo, took something like 8 hours. And we would go with the Spotify, like picking songs, like, hey, let's listen to some Dark Throne now that we're here driving up in the mountains and all that stuff. At some point, he put on some music, which I was like, man, this rings a bell in my head, but I really can't put my finger on it. I really can't figure out what the name is. But I mean, like, this is something that I know, but I just can't remember. After a while, Carl gave me a couple of hints, and it all came to my mind. Limbonic art. Limbonic art is, in one way or another, much like Malevolent Creation. Not the biggest, not the most beautiful, not the most original in style, but the kind of stuff that when you hear it, it's like, hey, this takes me back. This is something we're 1990s or maybe early 2000s kind of a metal. So there was a little bit like, hey, what is this? This is something that I know, but I don't really love it. Malevolent Creation is not uh, just something like that, basically. So in a way, working class death metal is very, very fitting in a way to describe it. But yeah, trashier death is basically what old school death metal bands are all about. Just remind yourself, say, first Morbid Angel album, or two if you consider Abominations of Desolations as the first, and Altars of Madness. Listen to Possessed stuff, and you will see the link here, or Sepultura, uh, quite early on, or even first Cannibal Corpse. Death metal and trash metal were like that bound. I mean, thing here is death metal is born out of trash metal in so many ways. So yeah, because I'm old school like that. I mean, I do love way more modern death metal bands as well. But much like my black metal, talking about Bathory, for instance, or Celtic Frost, the kind of a trashiness is right there, bringing the old school vibe, 80s, 1980s, when I was a kid. So there's that. About Brian Monza and the Metallica tickets, yeah, $600. What the hell? That is just too much. Yes, Brian Monza Scotch whiskey is definitely the best in the world. Now the funny thing is because Japanese took Scotch whiskey makers or whatever to Japan, quite a bit of Japanese whiskeys also have the kind of a Scotch feeling to it. Waldman, I recently actually made a video about Till Lindemann's sexual allegation stuff, so I won't be repeating it here. But let's say, I guess he crossed too many borders, and we even discussed a little bit of that because it seems my friend's girlfriend has been in some of those shows where she has been picked as, you know, come to the backstage kind of a thing with Till Lindemann going on. Apart from that, I mean, he's a great stage actor. I mean, I'm not gonna say he's like the best vocalist ever, but he's very charismatic. He does fine job as a Rammstein frontman, and I like his singing. But when it comes to these sexual allegations, these sexual misconduct, hashtag Me Too kind of things, of course, that's not something I approve. That should be given. So this is kind of a big topic. Like, what do you think about that? It's almost like, what do you think about substances? Some of substances are very nice, but it depends on the context. Like, no drinking and driving, or more like saying, hey, smoking pot can be fun, putting heroin in your veins, maybe not so much. So, too big a question to answer like that. Um, what else? Hello, the Black and Hymns channel. Welcome to the stream. Any chance of another interview with Blood Jellies? Maybe someday. Usually like to keep a little bit of these interviews, part one and part two, a little bit, a few years apart, because once you do original interview, then you need to always think about what would be the reason for part two. Have things changed too much? Is there something to add? Maybe, maybe. I mean, the original one was done in 2018 anyway, so maybe Blood Charlie's interview part two could be very much in the game. But it depends on situation, like are the guys around and what other bands they are around. For example, nowadays when I'm, for example, going to Steelfest, of course I try to get um, foreign bands for interview because they are way way more rare. There are no so many possibilities to interview a band from outside of Finland than a Finnish band. So, for example, at Steelfest, I always prefer the bands that are non-Finnish, but sometimes I do make exceptions. Probably not with bands like Blood Chalice, though, because I mean there are other possibilities to interview them. So maybe some days there will be um, part two of that, but I really can't promise it at this point because I try to get as many new bands as possible in order to have more variation, more diversity with the interviews and all that stuff. Yeah, Demokos, gotta say, I haven't really been tasting much of Canadian whiskeys, only cheap ones. Maybe someone should buy me some Canadian whiskey someday and convince me. Um, so I think the interview with Terrestrial Hospice is the, let me count, fourth one from Beyond the Gates. So I'm thinking it's probably going to be late September. So at least a few more weeks. But yeah, doing powerlifting with Blood Chalice part two would be harder because I don't live in the same place anymore as where I used to. So my current gym, which is right behind me, it's not suitable place to do training with more than one or two guys max. So it would have to be some other location, proper gym anyway, and there it is harder to get those interviews done. But we shall see how it goes. All right, Wulman. I hope you got the part from Till Lindemann and all that stuff. Cecilia, about best French death metal. Well, in my opinion, I haven't really heard much good death metal from France, so that list would be quite short. When it comes to black metal, I'd rather narrow it down more than just say overall French black metal, because French black metal, much like basically any other country, it comes to different eras. For example, if we're talking about 1990s, Legions Noir black metal, the kind of a raw end, when we're talking about like Mutilation and Vlad Tepes, Pelquetre, and bands like that. I mean, it's totally different than, say, nowadays bands. When people are talking about bands such as Death Spell Omega or some of those Ladlow releases like Akkad or Moonreich or plenty of other bands which are very, very, very different. Now, nowadays, French black metal, in my experience, is very, very different than the kind of early 2000s or late 90s kind of black metal. It's almost like a different scene and style altogether, like raw, more primitive, obscure kind of black metal versus very modern, like third wave of a black metal. So it's, I would totally do it in different places. Like already, now that I'm doing this Norwegian black metal video series, Norwegian black metal from the 90s, to crash course to Norwegian black metal. If you've been following the series, there are now 7 episodes done, of which 5 are out. You can already see that even though we're talking about bands that were right there since the 90s, they are so diverse, so different. And of course, nowadays, scene it's even more different. But there are just too many bands to featured on one episode. Or, I mean, there are like two options. If I would list a bunch of bands in one episode, it would be 2 hours episode. Well, like a boring documentary. And if it would be split into different sections, then it would be a series, which is something that I would definitely go for when going to that. But nowadays, I mean, at the moment, at least for this year, it's going to be crash course through the Norwegian black metal ones. And I'll take a look at this list. So far, I've gone through some 22 bands for this Norwegian project. And I have almost 70 bands, 65 listed. There are a few black trash ones, such as Aura Noir, Desecrator, and Nocturnal Breed. But even without them, my list is like over 60 bands. And this is just Norway from the 90s, not included any bands that were founded 2000 onwards. So imagine the workload that needs to be done with the bands, listening to the full discographies and all that stuff. So maybe someday French black metal will be touched more in depth, but not at the moment. Lucas, unfortunately, I was unable to go to Helsinki Metal Fest. If I was, I wouldn't be doing this stream this weekend. So I was supposed to be there already yesterday and today and do some interviews. Like for example, uh, Emperor interview was already set. I already got time and place and what have you. But unfortunately, I had to stay home and take care of the animals. So couldn't go, even though there were quite a few interesting bands and, of course, lots of friends to meet. Stevens, no, I haven't seen anything new about Shining album. And yeah, Shining Niklas interview has been in works for at least 3 years. He has, as far as I know, agreed to do the interview, but time and place has been a little bit hard, especially when Niklas Kvarford of Shining has had his own legal troubles for assault, uh, whatever. I don't remember what other charges he faced, but at least he faced some assault charges. So I don't know if he will be serving some time in the Finnish prison system or will he be considered uh, innocent or whatnot. But yeah, Nicholas of Shining isn't exactly at the moment that reachable, I would say. Thank you, Black and Hymns channel, for your comment about what you just said about promoting underground music and all that stuff. Now, I always keep saying, time to time, that is when people ask me that, Rauta is my way of thanking the whole scene. I've been getting so much, um, I wouldn't say love, that sounds so wrong, but basically metal scene with various bands, with various people, and of course albums, gigs, what have you, festivals, events. I've been getting so much from metal scene since I was a kid in the 80s. But basically, since the floodgates opened in the 90s, uh, metal has been more and more important part of my life. If I'd be listening to something else, probably I would be doing entirely different kind of a music channel, or maybe I wouldn't be doing it at all. But Rauta is my way of giving something back, like reviewing albums for like-minded metalheads, and of course interviewing lots of those bands, and well, doing these kind of streams and other feature videos for people who are interested in metal. So yeah, for me, it doesn't matter if it's underground or mainstream or whatever. Good music is good music, despite the style, despite the age, despite success and what have you. So yeah, if it makes you happy, if you like the content, I'm really happy about it. But this is just my way of supporting the scene as well as doing my part in the bands, doing music, and I hope that it gives some meaning or happiness to people's life. Even though I have my own very misanthropic moments, I don't always consider human race worth saving and all that stuff. But then again, when I meet good, interesting people at festivals like Beyond the Gates, Inferno, Steelfest, and other places, I also think like, yeah, these are in a way brothers from, like it's the saying goes, brother from another mother. But I'm saying like these kind of people, maybe like you, for instance, right there watching this stream, give a lot of meaning to the whole thing. I'm not gonna say that mankind is united, unified, whatever. But I'm saying like this is kind of a tribal thing, tribal movement in a way. We are bonded over metal. We are bonded over the music we love, which gives us meaning, which gives us maybe hope or glimpses of hope when we feel down, when we feel, I don't know, beaten and all that stuff, or also happy moments when we're drinking beer with our friends, we're listening to some good music, we're talking about it, we are just enjoying it, it's boosting our lives. So many ways to enjoy music, so many things that music can really give you. For some people, it gives the whole meaning of life. Create something, create art that is meaningful to you, and metal is just our way. So, as naive as may sound, but I was listening to this. I was listening to Manowar on Wednesday when I was doing heavy squats. That was my birthday, and I feel like okay, now it's no time for review albums or any of my listening projects like this Norwegian crash course. So I wanted to go something like let's really lift the mood, and I was like, yeah, let's do Manowar because it's always fitting music for lifting. And of course, I was in a really, really good mood because, in general, I'm a good mood guy always. But I was like, like good mood plus, if you want to call it that. When I was at the gym, listening to Metal War and thinking about these Metal Brother lyrics. I mean, they're so cheesy, they're kind of naive, and all that stuff. But at the same time, sometimes what we really need is the kind of positive naivety, like, hey, brothers in metal, like, if you like metal, you're my friend, the kind of a mindset. Now, a lot of people from extreme metal scene might really think, like, yeah, what bullshit is that? We're misanthropes, we would just want to destroy the world and fuck you. But then again, at the same time, I feel like this kind of a Manowar positivity, this kind of a tribal, we're brothers united in metal, over metal, because of metal, what have you. I think it's also quite true. So, for example, when I went to Bergen, I went to Beyond the Gates Festival. Most people are there for black metal, and the rest maybe death metal. Some are for pentagram type of doom metal and what have you. In the end, however, we're a bunch of metalheads there for one and the same thing: metal music. And you can't fake those smiles. You can fake those smiles when you're shaking people's hands and you're like, "Hey, I know you," and blah blah blah. We're mutual friends. We're here sipping beers and we're like grabbing our glasses, listening to some good music, talking about some good bands and gigs and the lifestyle we chose, or maybe the lifestyle chose us. I don't know. My point here is, with my rambling, is that in the end, no matter how much we might hate or dislike the world that is not ours, normal people, if you will, well, this kind of a tribal thing, which I think art is definitely doing, not just in metal. I mean, there are plenty of different scenes, whether it's about modern paintings or, I don't know, theater or movies, what have you, gaming. People are, when they are like sharing their common thing, be it about, like our case, metal music, that is something that you just forget your misanthropical thoughts. And you're like, man, now I'm in good company. I'm like among other wolves or whatever totem animal you are having. We are, in the end, we are more like a tribe because we are pack animals. Humans are not that much individual if you really think about it. So when there is a common reference, people are saying like, yeah, well, like those wolves. Maybe we're not wolves really because we're most of us are not really fighters, warriors, whatever. But when you have that kind of a man of war moment, when you're like, okay, this is definitely the bond we share. This is our connection. Then this is like we're brothers in metal and we're like drinking booze, having good times and all that stuff. So you can pretty much put all the shit behind your back. Whether it's about like, okay, you had a, I don't know, bad fight with your spouse. Maybe your girlfriend or boyfriend was acting all shitty and you decided to go on the festival and like, oh fuck it. I'm gonna be with my friends, listening to some good bands and drinking beer, and suddenly all those worries go away. Or maybe you get fired from your job and you're like, fuck, I'm just down. But then you meet your friends over bands, over beers, and suddenly it's like, fuck it. Life is just good stuff, smiling at me. All I'm saying, no matter where you go, when you meet like minded people, when you share that connection, that bond, well, then life is worth fucking living. Am I right? Hello, Dark Leather. Welcome to the stream and Jerry's random rants. Okay, reading once again your comments. Let my rant sink in. Feel free to disagree or agree. I don't get to choose how you react and all that stuff. But me just rambling about metal. Domokos is asking what Hungarian bands, metal bands I like. I must say I'm not that familiar with many Hungarian bands. Sometimes I'm thinking of a Hungarian band only to realize, okay, it was actually a Romanian band. So I'm not good with that. I remember, of course, Tormentor, where Attila Shishar and all that stuff. That was quite good. And if I'm not mistaken, Witcher is also from Hungary. That's actually pretty decent atmospheric black metal, which I can uh, recommend people to check out. But there's so many Hungarian scene that I really don't know. I'm not really familiar with the scene. Yes, Askep, I have been thinking about Rauta label, but that has been only an idea which I don't know if it's worth doing. Because then it would also take my time and I don't know, also a lot of money to be invested so that the labels get the releases get done right. And once upon a time, some almost 20 years ago, I had my own distro and label called Serpent's Eye. I only released a couple of albums, and the reason why I shut down after two albums, the label was that I am not really so much a salesperson. And when you run a label, of course you kind of need to sell your albums. You're gonna pitch them to different distribution and labels like, hey, take my album for your distribution and all that stuff. You need to sell, 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 sell. You need to market, market, market. Marketing isn't that bad. I mean, I've been doing that for quite a bit in my life. I've been doing sales as well, and I don't really like that much sales. It's so much pushing around and trying to promote all the stuff and make people want to buy it. And of course, it needs that money. I mean, it's not like you just release album and suddenly 500 copies are gone. You actually need to find good bands. You need to sell them. You need to promote them. You need to market them. So it's kind of a full-time job with not that much of a pay. So I don't really know if that's my thing. I mean, in a one way or another, a Rauta label would be fine. But then again, I really don't know. I don't know if I have the energy to do that, especially when I have so much other things to do with the very limited time. So there's that. Oh yeah, Merrimack was mentioned of those French bands, but I don't know. I never was too much of a fan of their stuff. Not that I heard every album, but it's okay. Yes, Waldman, I will definitely talk to you if I'm doing a video of French extreme metal. Yes, so I would say Svartalfheim by Ancient and also Trolltar MCD. They are cult classic releases. Actually, by the way, met Zell again and his wife. Nice couple, really. Nothing bad to say about them. Well, with the exception of maybe the Jesus thing is not too much, but I don't know if he's that much of a Jesus kind of a Christian. Anyway, yeah, I think Swearelheim and Trolltar are good ones. After that, changed a little bit too much in my opinion, but they are good releases, and of course they will be mentioned in my crash course to Norwegian 19's black metal series when I get that far. That Ancient will be mentioned. Brian Mons, regarding Nightside, we're currently doing new songs. We have quite a few ready. I'm not exactly sure anymore at this point how many we have actually ready and which how many we have like half finished. I mean, by ready I mean that we have also lyrics in place more or less and all that stuff. Including the demo tracks, I'm thinking we probably have something like seven or eight, and at least a few more to be finished. So we're roughly talking about 10 tracks or so for Nightside's second album. And I think there will be more. Like yesterday, our other guitarist, he was like sharing some ideas and, hey, these riffs are good. So currently, we're demoing some of the tracks we have. I think demo drums were played for five more tracks. And next week, we're supposed to, record demo guitars and bass tracks on them so we get to actually listen and feel how the songs are going. Old school, that is. You need to demo tracks for yourself as well before you go to studio and do an album. So Nightside is doing steady, and hopefully we have a couple of gigs this fall with Nightside. There's at least one foreign gig planned, not announced yet, and maybe one gig on Finnish soil, and at least next February there will be a Nightside gig at Turku Saatanalle event in my home city. So there we will play some new songs. At least that's the plan so far. Matti man, I think my coolest vinyl is if I have it somewhere here. Um, I don't know where it is. Sorry, I won't be picking it up. But definitely one of the coolest is that Blood Incantation Time Wave Zero. Uh, well, EP technically speaking, because it was really, really nicely done. Other favorite is the Urfaust one, which I recently reviewed. I guess those are in so many ways cool package and cool feel to it and nice, not your ordinary black vinyl kind of stuff. Thanks, Rob Hellfire, about the shirt, and welcome to the stream, by the way. Yes, Cecilia Taylor, I know that metal makes you happy and you have your head all fixed. You don't have a problem with that. So all in all, good. And yeah, Benji, yeah, you and me seem to think a lot alike about music and all that stuff. So the energy, like you said, is definitely something that metal has. Rob, about hire a salesperson. Well, imagine how much money you would have to make on a label in order to hire one. Like, that's not just possible unless you have thousands and thousands and thousands of euro to be spent. So hiring one when you don't have money to begin with fucking makes no sense. Oh yeah, old money. Yeah, that's that NFL Duke football is right there because hey, it keeps me reminding of NFL. That's actually a gift from my friends who lived in America. Got it as a gift many years ago. Oh yeah, Russia is a big country, and going through those bands that would take a lot of time. Never been that much Russia focused, but and to be honest, don't feel like doing that as long as Russia acts like an ass country. But yeah, there are plenty of underground bands that could take some time to be listened and all that stuff. Um, yeah, so I mean, basically, I'm trying to include as many possible in that 1990s list as I mean as I can gather information and bands that actually have something worthwhile released. I even listed some of the demo bands there, but I don't know if they will end up in final episodes. And when I'm done with the list, mind you, I will be asking, like, hey, are there some bands which are missing and that I should know about and I should comment and come back to the list later on. But for the time being, I don't know if people can add much to that, but we shall see. We shall see once we're done so far. So far, the bands that are on the list are still relatively big. So because I'm not even halfway through with the whole list of bands, and I mean we're still like next in line. For example, we have Arcturus. Actually, that one I finished already today. Then there is Dödheimsgard next and Covenant. These are all like lumped up by certain themes. Like when I started the whole crash course thing, I started with the essential ones, which are, of course, Mayhem, Dark Throne, and Burzum, the biggest, the most known, the most recognized, and also, at least when it comes to Mayhem and Dark Throne, the oldest. And then again, Burzum was really, really early on with their 1992 debut one as well. Um, Basically, the second oldest in that respect because only Dark Throne had debut in 1991. Then the second episode was all about the big ones, the biggest ones in terms of um, success, excluding Mayhem, of course. And they were Dimmu Borgir, Satyricon Immortal, and they are the biggest one. And those six bands, are the first steps. Everybody should supposed to know them, but of course, they're always teenagers that just found black metal a week ago. Now, mind you, the list went on with bands like Enslaved, Emperor, and Ulver. That is like the nine more or less bigger ones, followed by Carpathian Forest, Gorgoroth, Torge, 1349, Ragnarok, and Tudor. Now, people might be figuring like, how is Ragnarok on the list? They are bigger bands, sure, but they are still like one of the active ones, and also being. The debut album came as early as 1995, so definitely more fitting for that list than some of the bands that came out a little bit later, like for example Tudor 2000, 1349, 2003. Quite late to the party if you really think about comparing to the bands that started in 1991, 1992. Now, the next episode, which is coming out. Oh, yeah, yeah. Actually, tomorrow features Borknagar, Keep of Kalasin, and Kampfa. And they are like still somewhat big, but I would call them mid-size. And now we're barely like having 18 bands in. Now this is followed by some dead ones like Windir, Urgehal, and Ildiarn. So we're still talking about somewhat more recognized bands, but now definitely going more into underground. Ildiarn, come on, it's a small band, even if their debut album came also as early as 1995. Now, as we go down to the list, there will be bands like Old Man's Child, Gehenna, Isengard, Limbonic Art, etc. And down we go in size. And this is somewhat going hand in hand with the signs. There are bands like Odium, Mysticum, Thorns, Toulouse, Cold, In the Woods, Manes, Ancient, Helheim, Forgotten Woods, Wedbuns, Ende, Troll, etc. And later on, there will be smaller bands like Threldom, Kvist, Fleureti, Wallachia, Mactatus, Fimbulwinter, and all those bands that maybe had like one album out and all that stuff. And there are smaller bands like Carpet Tenebrum or Ziglon B, Street, etc. So a lot of bands that are not exactly renowned for their stuff. But like I said, now we have just some 18 bands in, which means six episodes, and the sixth episode is out tomorrow. So it that just showcases how many known bands there were in Norway back in the 1990s. Dozens and dozens, which are more or less relatively known. And then you have some more underground bands to talk about, which are not that known. There are actually some bands which I didn't know at all. I mostly knew them all, but for example, when I was gathering information for this list, like I ever don't remember hearing the band called Source of Tide. I don't remember listening to Enthrall. So of all these about 65 bands on my list, there is something like 5 to 8 bands maybe which I haven't heard. So I don't know. It will be interesting to listen to some of that stuff for the first time. But most of the stuff, most of the bands on that list is something that, of course, I know. Of course, and of course. But I've been listening to this stuff since the mid '90s. So I still remember how some bands felt like new ones, like Tudor when they were like 2000 bands. So yeah, but I hope that there are some bands that people will be like, wow, hey, I haven't heard of this band and I gotta check it out. And so we'll see how it goes. Malignant Let me see if that's actually on the list. Might not be. Let's see. I don't think Malignant Eternal is on the list actually for some reason. I need to check it out. No, thank you for reminding me about it. That should be on the list, but that name didn't come to my head. I only vaguely remember the band. Let's add it to the list right away. It was their first album, 1995 also. Yeah, I gotta check it out, the names at some point. But a good addition. Yeah. Hello, Delazo. Welcome to the stream. For Windir, first of all, it will be featured in the next episode, not tomorrow's, but episode 7 on the crash course of Norwegian black metal. And secondly, I've already done my Windir worst to best video last year. So all my thoughts are there. Not going to recap that much here. I have definitely been speaking about Valfar's work because I've listed or done that worst to best of Windir already. I don't know. I think it was out a year ago. I probably have to check out my list, so I could actually give you the link here. Oh, actually, goddamn how time flies. I was saying I did it last year, but it was already in 2021. So when was this added? Yeah, almost 2 years ago when I did win data. Let's add it to, oops, add it here. Let's give the link to Dalazo. That is the Winder link. Benji is asking what kind of picks up strings does Jaakko use? I don't know which Jaakko you're referring, so can't really comment. Not that I would know what kind of strings we're talking about. Somehow some of the lines here are well, Rob. If only people were that passionate that you don't have to pay more than you can afford. I mean, unfortunately, that doesn't really happen. I mean, that doesn't fly. That needs more than idealism to make it happen. Because eventually, people are like, okay, why would I waste my time on this and that when it's not doesn't pay my bills? Um, Rauta is a very good example of that. No matter how many people say, yeah, we love Rauta and all that stuff, people still don't put money on it. That's a good example. And I've also noticed through my years, more than 20 years as a hobby journalist, that most people who start doing reviews and interviews, they got worn out within 2 or 3 years. So it starts as like, hey, I want to do metal reviews, I want to do metal interviews and all that stuff. And they're passionate, they're enthusiasts about it. 2 years later, they're like, bye, got better things to do. What can I say? I understand. Everybody has to pay the bills and, make living. And passion doesn't really help it. So unless you can do it as some kind of a hobby, then you can just do it. Like I'm doing Rauta. This is my hobby. If I had to start paying bills with this stuff, I would have to shut down things right away. And SK, I agree that Kamfar is actually one of the better ones of Norwegian bands, especially nowadays. Their discography is very, very consistent in quality and style. So I would say, yeah, it's a good band. And by the way, Kamfar's main man Dolk agreed to do interview with me. My cameraman Carl already made it kind of happen, but he didn't know that I'm not going to Midgård Plot this year. Otherwise, it would have been done at Midgård Plot within a week. So, unfortunately, it's not happening this year. But Campfire will be done later on. And Brian, um, I think Campfire's favorite, the best album is the first one, but the albums like two or three, not even close. But later in Campfire, I think it kind of picked up. So later Campfire is actually pretty good, even though not in the same quality as the first album. And yeah, Zoh Kvist is definitely kind of a cult classic release, even though I mean only one album, but I don't know. Maybe it had something with the melodic style and all that stuff that made impact. Maybe also that Ergehal connection made it, a little bit pop up. So there's that. Yeah, yeah, SK. I totally understand why you dislike Ulver. Personally, I think Ulver did only one real black metal album, the third one, which isn't too good in my opinion. There are like good riffs here and there, but the necro sound doesn't really support the whole album, and it's not that good even in terms of riffs. There are good riffs here and there, but there are also a bunch of just filler. The second album, um, Kvalsanger, Kvelsanger, that's just in my opinion very boring acoustic guitar album. The first album is maybe the best Ulver album, but I mean even that is like only half black metal. It's not like I wouldn't call it purely black metal anyway. I mean, it's just so much clean singing and melodic stuff, which isn't really black. But I mean, Arcturus. How is Arcturus even listed as a black metal band? When you listen to that stuff, it's not really black metal at all. God damn! I just finished the discography, and those two first albums are like horrible in a way. Especially the second album, just fucking avant-garde-ish circus music and nothing really indicating it's black metal. I mean, calling Arcturus a black metal band is almost saying like In Flames is a death metal band or Pantera is a trash metal band. So there's that. Yeah, Delazo, whatever. I mean, doesn't matter if you forget it or missed it, but there it is. In case you want to take my look on Windir, not gonna be that positive, I guess, what you're thinking, but there it is. Yeah, Brian, I think actually some of the best ones that Ulver has done is actually the ambient one, but that's more about the soundtrack stuff rather than anything to do with their metal albums. Ah, Benji, so you were talking about Nightside question about the gear, because I was wondering. Yeah, you meant Jaakko of Nightside. Okay, okay. Um, I don't remember or actually know what kind of strings he's using, but I can totally forward the question to him. I can actually copy it from here. Um, so won't come to this one, but I will just post it on the band's Discord chat and ask. Hold on. Where was the original? Okay, found it. Maybe we will get Jaakko's reply later on. Yeah, Tolke is interesting band because they have their own signature style of Norwegian black metal. It's not the rawest, it's not the most melodic, it's not definitely the most symphonic one, it's definitely not the most necro one. In my opinion, Tolke or Tolke is kind of like the middle path one, and I get it why a lot of people like it. Never been one of my favorite ones when it comes to Norwegian black metal. Maybe because it's too much in the middle. But then again, I also understand it just fine for the reasons I listed. Because thing here is, uh, it's not going too cheesy, too folky, too symphonic, too raw, too primitive, or anything like that. So it's kind of a safe and easy to approach and still get the feeling that you're actually listening to some black metal band rather than some, I don't know, Arcturus or Vedbo and Zende, which have very, very little to do with black metal. Like like I said, I don't feel like Arcturus is exactly a black metal band or never was, but because it's listed as such, I kind of feel inclined to include it in my crash course video series about Norwegian black metal. Because otherwise, people would be asking me, like, why Arcturus is not on the fucking list. But let's just put it this way: Tolke is pure blood Norwegian black metal. Arcturus, Vedbo and Zende, Ulver, not so much. So there's that. Yeah, Comfort has good vocals, and I also like Dolk's style in general. So there's that. Oh, thank you, Benji. Glad you liked the tone, and I hope that we can keep it with the second album that will feature those Lions song. But of course, they need to be re-recorded, so the overall sound will be different, and I think even lyrics might be a little bit different. I still want to retouch them a little bit. What else? Oh yeah, talking about talk a little bit more. Since I have heard already the new album, and actually Hust was supposed to give us those albums. He already have has the CDs. I think you will definitely like it. In my opinion, it's definitely on the better side of Tolkien, but that's just my opinion. Rep Hellfire, yeah, I'll keep your comment in my mind if I will go back to running a label. I just don't think I will. Let me put it this way: if I have the energy and money to do some kind of a side thing with Rauta, I guess I'd rather go for the Rauta festival rather than running a label. But let's see. Let's see. Sometimes my mind might change and all that stuff. Yeah, and Tolke is a good live band for sure, and I like how Hust performs. So, for example, I was watching Gorgoroth show, except maybe last song and Beyond the Gates, and that was just killer. They will be playing at Steelfest 2024 as well. Tolke I didn't watch so much, only a little bit because I saw Tolke already last year twice, so didn't really need to watch Tolke show this time. I actually visited Hust's apartment as well before we went for the last part of the Tolke interview. Um, I like the man. What can I say? He's a good lad. One of the friendliest and nicest Norwegian people I have ever met. I really like him. No bullshit guy, as far as I can tell. Not pretending anything, in my opinion, what he's not. Just a friendly, no bullshit guy. Good humor. Love that man. Um. Oh yeah, Marduk. Missing Marduk is can be something somewhat annoying. Um. But gotta say, I missed Marduk at Beyond the Gates too, and I don't feel anything about it because they play so often. For example, I already saw Marduk played last year at Inferno, so even didn't care if I would miss them. Um, for example, at Beyond the Gates, because you get to see Marduk every couple of years nowadays in the Nordic areas. Cecilia Taylor, gotta say, my experience about Keep of Kalasin is a little bit different. The two first albums, they're kind of solid, but after that, it became something different. And they were actually quite big. I think they kind of ruined the path a little bit with themselves, doing Eurovision contest song and all that stuff. I mean, trying to get the Eurovision contest done, but Nope. They mainstreamed their style, but not enough in order to really become mainstream. So instead, they just kind of offered diluted version of Keep of Callus in earlier material, but not enough in order to mainstream to like it. You know what I'm saying? So it's almost like Keep of Callus is not, it's not extreme enough to be extreme metal band anymore, but it's not soft enough to be mainstream band. So they're kind of a limbo state. Very fitting for bands like In Flames and the like. So kind of like heavy, not that heavy. Extreme, not that extreme. So they're in the limbo phase. I guess very fitting for Children of Bodom kind of audience. No disrespect for the band, but I mean, there's difference whether you're playing melodic extreme metal than playing melodic black metal, if you know what I mean. And I think Keep of Calasin went a little bit too much on the Children of Bodom ways in order to get more recognition, success, what have you. All right, reading your comments. So let me just focus a little bit. Yeah, Brian Mons, I would say start with the latest come far and go back to their discography. You might like some of the newer ones because, in my opinion, they really improved with the early ones. I wouldn't say the Kvass or the what the Fra under Vreden or whatever the second album name is. I would say they're probably the weakest. The first one is fucking killer. That's beautiful album. But after that, they kind of went steep decline, but started climbing back. So later comfort albums are more mature in a good way. And in my opinion, there's a lot of talk feeling with comfort albums, even though comfort has been more on the folkier side of things in a way, more Viking metal vibe to it. Lucas is asking if I ever done strongman workouts. Can't say I have. Most of the gyms don't have, for example, those stones to lift and all that stuff, or even logs to be lifted. So haven't really done them ever. And the second thing is I don't even know what they are. I mean all the workouts. So probably would need someone to kind of guide me through. Zoh can't really comment on the new Beherit album. I don't know what to expect really after Bardo exists, which in my opinion is a good album. Well, Jai got to wing about drummer of Azazel. Knowing that guy past 20 years or so, I all I can say is he might change his mind. So you never know. Yeah, Dalazo. I mean, that political bullshit doesn't really help me to like music. But this is not about politics with Hurst. I think just in general, he's a good lad. Who I think could be next Marduk's bass player. That is hard bet. I wouldn't put my money on anything. I think it has to be someone who can commit doing a pro career in metal music. It could be really someone outside the obvious black metal thing, because I think first and foremost, Marduk is Morgan's band, and by that I mean when he does songwriting and sets the limits, the borders for Marduk. Uh, the bass player doesn't even have to write riffs and all that stuff, as far as I think. So it could be just anybody basically. Probably someone who is more stable. I think they learned the lesson now. So it could be one of the kind of a mercenary musicians. And by mercenary, I mean look at Gorgoroth. There is only one solid member in the band, and that one is Infernus. Even Hust is more like on mercenary role as far as the band is concerned. That is, these kind of bands can just kind of a cherry pick, figure out who would fit to play in the band in terms of like looking solid live, but also able to learn the songs like qualified in music wise, and then if of course the band chemistry that always has to be present there. But it's different for example us Nightside. We're a bunch of guys doing this as just a kind of a normal band. Nothing of our livelihood or anything is not dependent on the band. Whereas bands like Marduk, they are so much bigger that even if they don't make the you know they're living out of the band, at least it's fucking bigger, much bigger in terms of making the whole tours and all that stuff happening. So, for example, Marduk really could afford a bass player that is studio only and another one who is live only. They really could do it. So it can really be something that is unexpected. It could really be someone outside of Sweden for all that I care. It doesn't have to be someone, from the close scene. Of course, Morgan might have certain idea that it has to be a guy or gal with ideology and certain mindset, certain values, blah blah blah. But I think what matters more in the end is that you can pull off those shows rather than being someone who is like really dedicated to the certain values and whatever. But I don't know. Um, could be just something that we don't even expect. But we shall see. We shall see how it goes. But probably someone who is needed to be more dedicated to Marduk than whatever other projects this person might have. Um, I don't know what's the story with Gorgoroth vocalisting because it has been changing so many times, and because Infernus doesn't do interviews, it's just impossible to get honest answer for that. I think there was some talk about Devo doing some kind of a replacement job for Marduk, but I don't know. That's just speculation. But yeah, sometimes all you need to have is enough money to convince, hey, put your studio on hold for a while and let us do this tour and all that stuff. Like I said, even though metal music, especially black metal, is not supposed to be about money and all that stuff, you gotta pay the bills. You gotta pay the rent for your studio and what else, pay mortgage, pay rent for apartment, all that stuff. So in the end, it might be about salary. Like if that covers your expenses, then you can do. But really, it could be someone outside the black metal scene. It really could be some trash metal bass player. It could be someone from death metal scene. I wouldn't be surprised anymore, especially that Marduk is established name. And by that I mean it's not some new band that needs to convince someone to join. Now the thing here is when they tour a lot and they are pro band, um, of course they have probably more than their minimum amount of applicants. Like hey, I could be the next placer. I could be your next bass player, and then they get to choose which of these guys would be fitting in both in you know playing style as well as lifestyle, and of course the chemistry, which I mentioned. But it's really, really hard to tell because I'm guessing they will get so many applications who would be the guy. So it's much like remember when Slayer had no Dave Lombardo anymore, kind of a thing. Or who would replace Jeff Hanneman of Slayer? Or who would replace Jason Newsted? Who would replace Cliff Burton for that matter? So obviously, bigger bands they get to choose. And while Marduk ain't no Metallica, Marduk ain't no Judas Priest or Iron Maiden, they are big enough in terms of black metal that they could just go call someone, hey, the bass players of 1349, come join us. Dump your current band. Okay, kind of a thing. I'm guessing, of course. I don't know. I don't have the answers, but the scene is not that small. I mean, that big. That I mean, for example, when I was setting up Eternus interview for Norway, one of the guys actually said that the guy who was sleeping in my Nargorod interview uh, by Ash was actually their bass player. So it's like, oh, really? No, didn't see that happening. German band having an, I don't know, maybe Norwegian guy, or maybe the guy wasn't Norwegian, but German band and Norwegian band had the shared um, drummer or whatever. My point here is nowadays bands are way more international. Back in the days with smaller bands, if you were from certain city, you would probably need the same bass player or guitarist from the same city. You're stuck with your own scene. If you're like, for example, we're a Bergen-based band, you probably wouldn't even take an Oslo-based member because that's so many hours away. But nowadays, bands like Asagraum, which is not big, mind you, can have international lineup. So if, for example, if their bass player cannot join, well, they have replacement for that because I know her and she has work shifts and she cannot play all the time. So if the band goes to play in foreign countries and their regular bass player cannot join, they will have replacement. So there's that. All right, Brian Mons, nice to see you. I think we will be done with the stream soonish because it's been almost 2 hours, and I think I want to do something else than just do the stream and drink whiskey all night. So stream will be ending soonish anyway. Nobody wants to hear me talking 4 hours straight anyway. But yeah. Yeah, I can totally imagine that Marduk is big enough to actually make decent living. But then again, you also have to understand that bands might have different settings, or settings is a weird word, but different things set by different members. Like, okay, if you do touring live, you get certain amount of salary, but merchandise, does it go to the regular ones or the whole band? Probably will be different. Like, why would a new guy joining in the band get his cut from the merchandise sale if he just joined when there's merchandise for decades to be sold? I'm saying it gets more complex than your own band when you're not really having to worry about like money. But like I said, we don't know it. So all in all, hard to say. Yeah, I mean, there Metal Archive site is, uh, maintained, moderated, and all that stuff with dozens and dozens and well, thousands of people are all around the world. Doesn't mean it's always right. Every now and then I hear complaints like this piece of information isn't correct or that is outdated and all that stuff. I'm just one dude, and I try to make fix those mistakes if I can with my ranking and all that stuff. and probably a lot of other people try to keep it up to date, but they're always, misinformation on those sites because it's given. I mean, every band doesn't want even have their information updated on Metal Archives. Some don't care about misinformation or disinformation, and some just don't even know what to do if some things happen, because it's not like some kind of a Wikipedia or whatever. It's not like, hey, this is Morgan from Marduk, why don't you fix this and that information? Bands just don't care or don't have the time and all that stuff. So it's, basically trying to fix a puzzle when you don't even know where the pieces are. Well, yeah, I mean, it's easy to romanticize 80s stuff. It's easy to think like, hey, back in the 80s, things were more real, things were more honest. Fuck that shit. People have been always more or less the same. Whether we talk about medieval times, Stone Age, or nowadays, people have always been more or less the same. Uh, but it's easier to think in a more romantic ways about the ages past. It's easier to think like, hey, back in the 1980s, metal people were more real and there were no cell phones, just people living in the moment. But you have to understand that back in the days, there were chunkies and there were people who were fucking each other's girlfriends or stealing each other's money or equipment and all that stuff. So 80s isn't necessarily any better than 2023. Music taste is different, but people, man, it's still the same. And yeah, Benji, what I mean is that um, what I've learned, anyway, my learning is very different than big bands such as Marduk, is that, hold on, shutting down the fan. Um, what I've learned playing in a band is that uh, can't really compare the big ones, but still saying is that it's one thing to have good people in your band because they're good people, like good friends, people you like, people you like to hang out with, and all that stuff. And then there are people you want to work with because they are more professional, more focused, and all that stuff. Say you might have a good friend who you want to keep close to you because they are good people, but maybe they are not suitable as band members, as people who are pushing your band forward, taking the next level, and all that stuff. Or you might have this guy who is really, really good musician, but sucks as a bandmate, maybe because he is not a decent guy, or maybe he drinks too much. I mean, this is very, very complex pattern, and I think a lot of bands have been saying this, and I agree that band is essentially a kind of a romantic relationship, like a marriage, but only with more people. And there comes these things even like jealousy. Like some people might say, yeah, 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 but in relationship, in marriage, you just don't have sex with other people, but band members can. Well, it's a kind of a similar thing when people want to have their side projects. Do they give their side projects more love and time than the main band? And then is when the jealousy might happen. Like suddenly, hey, that guy is touring with his other band, which is essentially he's having a some kind of a side project, which is essentially like outside marriage, something else is happening. So, for example, when you have typical band with 4 to 5 guys, and you're trying to keep everything like nice and tight, you want to be pro at the same time, uh, meaning that things actually happen, that no people, you know, don't suddenly don't get into rehearsals because they're chunkies or wasted or whatever, and that they show up in time for gigs and what have you. and also are able to figure out schedules like with day job and maybe possible, relationship with their spouses and managing time enough for band. There's so many different things. So all I'm saying is that having a good band where everybody is doing their part, doing their job, and you're actually also making good music, it's not an easy task. It's way easier to just say, okay, fuck it, I'm just gonna stop playing or maybe do my own solo project in a way. Because first and foremost, you want to keep the band going. And that takes chemistry, that takes passion from all the members. You don't want to be the only one who does actually something in the band, whereas the rest of the people are like, oh, fuck it, we're just laying around and waiting for something to happen. So, having a band, running a band is a quite difficult task, in my opinion. All right, take care, Dalazo. It was nice to have you here. And yeah. All right, final questions. We're almost 2 hours in. So do your final questions before I'll be heading out. Probably in this case, um, gonna start playing a little bit Mass Effect 2 before I head to bed. Yeah, it takes passion, and when the people don't share the passion, that's when things can go unequal. I mean, if it's the like one or two people running the whole show, and the rest of the people are just like being lazy, it can create bumps on the road. Like people are like, fuck it, these guys are doing nothing, but they're taking their share of the money, whereas these one or two guys are just, I don't know, doing everything. So in that respect, band is very very hard to do because it's not like corporation. It's not like you have CEO who is like, hey, you do this and you do that, and just command everything to do their job. But everything is based on the very idea that it's something that comes out of passion. I mean, I have the same thing with Rauta basically. Rauta is in a way like a band. Like I'm doing the biggest share of things because most of the times, for example, streams or reviews and what have you, um, I don't need the camera people, and of course they wouldn't be around here. But when interviews happen, I need to have them around me, and I need to know that I can actually trust them, so that these interviews will happen around certain time and all that stuff. I mean, if there's something like, "Oh, I'm too drunk, I cannot do a video there," and all that stuff, and I would be like, "Okay." Suddenly, this interview doesn't take place because I can't trust my camera people. It would fall apart. Like for instance, uh, a lot of these interviews have taken place because I can always trust that my camera people are right there when I give them time. Okay, this is happening like 6 p.m. Be there and blah blah blah. I can trust them. Things go smoothly. But if there were like alcoholics or they wouldn't, even read their message or just whatever, the whole schedule would fall apart. So in that sense, it's much like playing in a band. Let's say I'm the songwriter, but what can I do if I don't have my drummer? What can I do if I don't have the vocalist? This is the whole deal here. So some things I could do not just as good. For example, these thumbnails for the videos. I could do some of them, and some of them would be more like crap. So I need to have my people around me much in the same way as doing in the band. And That's what happens. No, Shipkin, I'm not drunk. This is my second whiskey. I'm just quite tired already because it's 1 a.m. But yeah, you came quite late to the party because we've been running the show for almost 2 hours now. And I didn't hear until now that Dark Throne is done with the new album, but then again, I really couldn't care less because, in my opinion, Dark Throne did their last good album almost 20 years ago. So their last two albums have been gravely disappointing. So, no, not really waiting for that. Yep. Yeah, you know, old man, what I'm talking about here and all that stuff. All right. If you don't have more questions, I think we will wrap this whole thing up. And I will be moving towards my Xbox and start playing and streaming Mass Effect 2 as soon as I've taken the dogs out for a little bit of PP. Um, Now I don't have the schedule for the next stream. It will be, however, somewhere in September. I know it won't be happening between 7th and 10th of September because then I'm traveling to a wedding actually outside Finland. So either it's the very first weekend of September, that is like 3 weeks from now, the 2nd of September, or then it will be 16th of September. I do not know yet the schedule, so we shall see how it goes. Um, we shall see. I will notify you when the schedule for next stream is taking place. And Shepkin, yeah, if only they would do Under a Funeral Moon comeback, that would be fucking great, but I doubt it. Well, we shall see. Yeah, Armageddon is great though, but even they totally changed his whole concept and all that stuff. All right, thank you for the time here on stream. Talk to you guys later, and I don't know, maybe join Rauta's Discord for more daily talks about metal and beyond. And take care, people, and check out Rauta Beyond. Also, I've been lately doing a little bit of outside metal reviews and all that stuff, and we'll continue doing that. So catch you later. And Cecilia, much love to you as well. Talk to you, talk to you later, people, and have a good weekend. Enjoy and good night.